Hello, and welcome to the Mindful Evolution Podcast. I'm Leah Drew, your host and MindBody healing guide. This podcast is for the awareness seeker ready to go deeper, create change, and feel more empowered over their physical, mental, and emotional well-being. My intention is to be a catalyst for you as we explore topics surrounding holistic health, mindset optimization, trauma healing, emotional intelligence, and much more. I'm so grateful to have you here and to support you as we evolve in mind, body, and spirit. Let's breathe in and out. Now, let's dive in. Welcome back to the Mindful Evolution Podcast. I'm your host, Leah Drew, and today I have a beautiful soul sister and amazing friend with me that is and has been journeying with me through just inner transformation and outer transformation since the day that we met. And I'm really excited to dive deeper into conversation with her today, because she has a lot to share with you through her own personal experiences. And it's been a privilege watching her grow and dive deeper into this process since I have met her, since I did meet her, since I met you. So I have Colleen Fitzgibbons here with me today. Colleen, thanks for being here, and thanks for being open to chatting with me about your experiences.
Thank you so much. This is truly such an honor to get to share in this space with you. And you've been, talking about wanting to do this kind of podcast for such a long time. I'm so excited that we're in the reality right now where it's happening and we're doing it right now. It's amazing. So very excited to be here with you and so excited to share about our journey together.
Yeah, I'm excited too. And so given that, I want to start with really where you and I met, because we met in a really interesting and fun and unique way. And we met at a friend's retreat that she was putting on. She was the one hosting the retreat, and I was co-facilitating. So I was there supporting as a facilitator, and you were there taking the retreat, experiencing the retreat. So I would love for you to share a little bit about your experience in meeting me and how you ended up at that retreat.
Yeah. Oh, thank you. I'm still kind of mind blown when I think about how I ended up on these women's retreats and in this healing world. It feels like it kind of fell into my lap in a way. But it all started with trauma and ice baths. I would say those are the two major factors that really came into play for me. Back in, let's say 2018, 2019, I started diving a little bit more deeply into my own healing work. And that involved becoming a Reiki Master and exploring Reiki healing energy. And so once I started learning the systems of Reiki and became attuned to that energy, it opened up so much of my own healing that I needed to do and focus on. So at first I was back in therapy and was living back at home. I was working odd jobs, trying to get my life together and figure out who I was and what I needed to focus on to feel better. Because I had been dealing with depression and anxiety for almost 10 years at that point. Didn't really have a root cause for it, and was able to come to some realizations through the Reiki work about what I had experienced and what I needed to really focus on. So a lot of my healing came down to awareness of my own sexual trauma and awareness of the disconnection that I had with myself and with men specifically. So I leaned into a coaching program that a friend of mine was doing. He had been a friend of mine since high school, and he had started doing this ice bath event with a couple of other guys. And I thought it was really strange. I didn't really know what they were doing, but they seemed to be enjoying themselves.
Why are these people throwing themselves into ice buckets?
Exactly. No, it was very strange to me at the time. And, this guy, Rob, he was a good friend of mine since high school, and I always supported his journey in the healing world and knew that what he had offered me in the past had supported me. And I reached out and told him where I was at in terms of being super dysregulated in my nervous system. Did he think that ice baths could help me? And he said, yeah, you should definitely come. We like want women to come to these events. And they hadn't really had a lot of women present at them before. So I went, and I got there and I almost left because I saw them setting up in the yard, and they had their kettlebells and their tires, and it looked like I was like entering into a CrossFit extravaganza, and I was like, oh, this is not what I signed up for. Like, I don't think I can do this, but I went, and I did the whole thing. We did a work-in where we did Tai Chi and breath work, and did a workout where we got to play on the fitness playground and interact and move in our bodies in ways that felt good, and then moved into the breath work to prepare to get into the ice, went into the ice, and then reflected on our experiences. And for the first time in my life, I was surrounded by people who were doing healing work, who had like a level of awareness about themselves and what they wanted to do with their lives. And they were men. And it was like all very strange and different and new for me. And more and more women started coming to these events. And one of them was our friend Rachel. So I connected with her and her partner, Ryan, and we just started talking about language work and coaching and all these different things in this magical world of healing that I was really just discovering. And Rachel told me she was putting on her first retreat. And I was like, oh, that sounds cool. Like, can I come? Just kind of throwing, again, pasta at the wall, seeing what will stick. And just, really liked her and really wanted to see what it was like to be with a bunch of women doing this kind of work after having been with men for a couple of months doing it at that point. So I went on her first retreat, which was maybe like 4 months or so before the one that you and I met on. And I was offering Reiki on that retreat. So I was acting as a facilitator of sorts as well. And I was still a participant. So I was right on that weird line between like, I'm here to help and support, but also I'm here to do me. So
it's an interesting and unique place to be as well.
Yeah, definitely. But it opened up some really cool opportunities to share Reiki with people and to meet people who would become attuned by me in Reiki ultimately and extend that Reiki lineage and utilize my teaching. And so that was very cool. But I loved the first retreat. And when I came home from it, my big takeaways were what I'm doing in my life is not working. My job is not working. My patterns are not working. These systems I have in place aren't working. So Rachel told me she was doing this other retreat in Sedona. I was like, okay, I definitely can't afford this, but I would like to go. I would like to give myself a destination to get to, and this is going to motivate me somehow. That was my idea. It was going to motivate me. And it motivated me ultimately to quit all my jobs and to buy a car and to drive across the country and go on a women's retreat in Sedona for 5 days. And that was where I got to connect with you. Mm-hmm. And I remember, I know I met you before this moment, but the moment I felt like the connection with you was when we were sitting in, it wasn't even a circle, it was just like a group of people outside. And we're all sitting and sharing something. I don't even know what was being shared at the time, but you just came right over to me and you sat behind me and you did some kind of body work on my neck or shoulder. I don't even remember what it was, but you touched my body in a way that allowed me to release whatever was there. And I think I like went and took a nap afterwards or something. I was like, I don't even need this group. I just need to like sit with this. Whatever Leah just did, I need to sit with it. And I just felt so seen by you in that moment because I hadn't said a word during that sharing circle to my knowledge. Like, I don't think I said anything. I think by the time it got to me to share, I was like, no, nope. Like, I had nothing. I couldn't even speak, So like, you saw it in me before it even came out of my mouth. And to be seen in that way was such a big thing for me. And it took me a long time to realize that like having a witness, being seen in my experiences, maybe even being seen without having to like articulate my experience to someone else. It opened me up to this idea that like I could be seen, that I could be understood, that I didn't have to do anything differently. And it was just a very powerful moment for me. And I just felt very connected to you and very safe with you, which is not something my nervous system defaults to. And so it was really nice to have that moment of genuine connection and feeling so supported and seen. And it was just such a simple, like 5 minutes maybe? Like it wasn't anything extensive, but it really made a big impact. And I remember telling you that I was starting this road trip. I was going to California. I didn't know where I was going or what I was doing. And you were like, I live in California. And I was like, oh, no way. That's crazy. And you're like, you should come and stay with me. Yeah. It's like, we met like, two days ago. Are you sure? You were so sure. And I felt so sure too. And, that's kind of like, there's a little magic that happens on retreats, I think, where like, I don't know if everyone experiences this, but there's this kind of like Disneyland energy about it, where like anything is possible, and like, oh, we're all here, and like we're gonna make magic happen, and like these are the connections you've been waiting for your whole life, and like because everyone shows up with that ideology, it happens a lot of the time. You really do meet those people who are like your people, and the people who can see you and who can speak your language. And I've met a handful of people on these retreats like that, but I feel like our dynamic is just so unique in that way. And yeah, you know, long story short, I've stayed with you for 3 weeks in California.
But either of us knew that we were going to be cohabitating for 3 weeks.
Oh no, I had absolutely no idea. And even like upon reflection, I never could have planned it. Like it was such an open-ended. I've never had so little structure in my life. I had never been without a job or without school or without some plan of where I was going next. I had never known I had never not known how I was going to pay my bills. That was like a terrifying experience for me to have to move through. And, you know, knowing that like I'm educated, I'm employable, I can definitely get a job. And I applied to hundreds of jobs while I was out in California. And I remember saying no to jobs and hanging up the phone and being like, what? I need a job. I can't believe I just said no to that. But I had to just like honor this like unique voice that I was hearing inside of myself for the first time that was telling me to like not do that and to do something different and to wait for the better thing to come along. And I had no idea how long it was going to take. I did not anticipate 3 weeks. I thought maybe a week and then I'll bounce to somewhere new and do a new adventure. And it was so much harder than I thought it would be to shift and to like not have like a steady ground. And I think you're such a grounded presence in so many ways, and it was hard for me to relinquish that and to be able to move out onto my own journey that I had embarked on, because I had never really been alone. I had never really done that by myself, and it was unique for me to have to navigate that. And like that like first night like out on my own after I left your place too, I remember vividly. And I really enjoyed it. Like I really did. Like I enjoyed being out on my own, but it was hard for me to step into it.
Yeah.
And you supported me through that so well.
I'm glad that I was able to hold that space for you, and like you held so much space for me those 3 weeks as well.
Oh yeah.
Like, there was so much that happened between the two of us in those 3 weeks. There were times we had to learn how to navigate and communicate and be like, no, I need time for me. And during those 3 weeks, I moved out of one apartment and into another apartment that you helped me with that move. And it was so supportive to have you there and to help me moving my things. And, you know, it's like, it's that space holding as you navigate through that transition, kind of like you're talking about on the retreat. And when you really deeply recall this experience of me, like just coming over and like offering you body work and like, I don't super recall that moment in time. It's just kind of like something I do. It's like, hey, can I put my hands on you? Like,
yes.
Yes,
please.
Yes.
If Leah asks you that, you say yes.
I'm honored. Right, but it's like that moment of like space holding for you to like transition through whatever it was in your physical body and your emotional body at the time. And I do recall that corner couch that we were all hanging out in on that retreat, and there was a lot of things happening in that dynamic there, but and so you had said something in talking about that moment in time on the couch where you felt seen and you felt understood, and such an important part of the journey is like finding the people that you can feel that way with. Yeah, because I think a lot of people have people in their lives that they really don't necessarily feel seen and heard and understood, and they don't feel like there's that like safe space being held for them. And when you don't have that, and you know, through knowing you and also hearing you talk about it, like you were just kind of coming into that understanding, right? That you're like, wow, like I can fucking have this. Like, wow, that's incredible. Like this exists. Yeah. Kind of like you're saying, like that magic on our retreats, and the in my opinion, one of the most important yet lesser supported parts of retreats is carrying that energy out of the retreat. Absolutely. Right? Like how do you take that, what you have come to understand, what you've come to see, what you've come to experience at the retreat, and now go home and integrate it into the life that you're living?
Right.
And in my opinion, it really comes down to that, like, right, when you're there doing that inner work within yourself, what are you seeing? But then going home and carrying that inner work into the environment that is normal and common and the same in many ways, right? It's like that consistency that is so familiar to you.
Yeah.
And like carrying that inner work back to those spaces so that you can really start to create that external shift and those external changes. And I know that when you were staying with me over these 3 weeks, like you got to see me shift. You got to see me shift those external environments, and you were shifting your external environments as well. Like everything for you was changing. You were looking for a job that was remote. I remember you like talking to me all the time about all the Facebook groups that you were in to help you find like these online jobs. And you were like, I don't know where I'm going to find an online job, but like I'm going to find an online job. And you did.
Yeah.
You found an online job that you've been with and you've learned so much through, and you knew it was possible, and you weren't willing to take no for an answer. And you did what you had to do internally to find that external experience that you were ready for, that you were looking for. And it was really beautiful watching you in that time and space choose to shift, choose to make changes that were totally unknown, that were totally new and scary in many ways, you know, but you did it. And that takes courage, and it takes strength, and it takes willingness and openness to step into new things.
Yeah.
Right. And yeah, that was a really beautiful 3 weeks, challenging in many ways, but also super beautiful, because I think we both were going through those really deep transitions in our worlds. And I think it was really cool that we were able to like cross paths in that transition. Me too. And then our paths didn't recross again for almost a year. I think I didn't see you for close to a year.
It was at least a couple months. So I guess I would have seen you towards the end of October, like mid-October maybe. And then I think the next time I saw you was about 6 months later at the Unleash event. Yes. In Miami. Yeah. Would have been when we connected next.
Yeah. Yeah. And so I'm curious, like, when you left my new home in Huntington Beach, after you moved me in. I'm going to say you moved me into my new place.
Hell yeah.
You literally did that.
Love it.
Like where did your path go? And like, how is that experience that you gained in those 3 weeks of like staying with me? Like, how did that experience carry into where your journey took you after that?
That's a really good question. In the immediate, like where I went after I left, I drove to Santa Monica. I found a surfing lesson, took a surfing lesson in Santa Monica.
Surfing's not my thing.
Totally. But you had a surfboard, and I remember moving that when we moved you too. You were doing the things that were like local, like to your area.
We were trying.
Yeah.
Putting ourselves into it. Right?
Exactly.
Doing the unknown, trying the new things, the uncomfortable things.
The uncomfortable
getting
things.
Smashed by waves in your face.
Oh my gosh, yeah. And I have I have hip stuff anyways, but like by the end of the surfing lesson, I could not stand up on the board because my hips were no longer functioning. Like they just were like flopping over. I had never experienced that level of like complete lack of control of my body. But it was really fun, and I'm really glad I did that, because that was something I told myself I was going to do when I came out to California, was take a surfing lesson. And after that, I went to a piano bar to find some music, because I love live music. And after that, I drove into the Los Pedros National Forest, and I camped up there in my car. And I remember there was a full moon, and I got to like sleep in my car with the moonroof open and just have like a little personal experience. And it was kind of the first time I felt like I was really out on my own and didn't know where I was going next, had truly no end in sight. And so it was cool to navigate that. And then it became overwhelming. I was like hanging out in California for like 2 weeks maybe. And, it's California, so it's getting expensive. Yeah. I still do not have a job. Been racking up a credit card bill for a couple months now, so things were starting to feel very pressurized, and I was feeling like, all right, this has been fun, this is a cool journey, but like I need to start taking this a little bit more seriously. Like I have obligations, I have responsibilities I need to meet here. So I was holding out for this one job, which is the job that I have now, and I'm glad I held out for it. It was the right call fully remote, gives me all the flexibility with my schedule, allowed me to travel and do what I wanted to do. But before I got that job, I was really panicked. And I was called one of my friends who was in Key West, Florida, and told her I didn't really know where I wanted to go. I wasn't ready to go home. And I didn't know how I was going to make money. And she was like, well, there's a million restaurant jobs down here. So even if you don't get the job you're looking for, like, you could always get a job down here doing something for a little while and then go home, or like, you know, hang out for a little bit, or you can stay. Like, you're always welcome. And I just wanted to be in a comfortable place and not be home. And so this felt like the right option. So I went to Key West and I got the job on the way there. And once I was there, I was able to do all of the things that I wanted to do. I was able to integrate music into my life on a daily basis. I was able to get to the beach and do all of the things I wanted to do outside of work, and save money and pay off bills and do the things that were making me feel like I was held back. So one of the most special things that I got to do with you, or actually all of the most special things I got to do with you
exactly
involved
what you're about to say.
It all involved music. And so, like, I know you know the ecstatic dance, of course, on the beach. That was such a beautiful day, and I still look at those pictures on my phone.
So much
and I'm just
fun.
like, oh my God, what a like beautiful and freeing experience. But the real one was the song circle. Those song circles that you brought me to, where people were just singing and using their voice and expressing their music and experimenting and playing with music. And it was so inviting and it felt so right. And I just forgot how much I missed having music in my life and what a musical person I inherently am.
Yeah.
And so it was lovely to get to connect with that and then see that become such a big part of my life in that next chapter that started down in Key West. And still is a big part of my life. I've prioritized music in a new way since that time that I've spent with you. And it's felt so good to like embody movement and embody my voice and to find those moments where music brings that joy into my life. And it's just one of those tools that I've been able to access so much more easily because it was demonstrated to me by you in that space.
Yeah, I'm glad that I could engage in some of those like expressive experiences. They're things that have deeply changed my life, and I love being able to offer that to others. And if you guys don't know, like, ecstatic dancing might be like my top number one most favorite thing to do in my life. Like, would rather be dancing always. If you add the beach and the ocean into that, like, that's an absolute, like, fuck yes.
Yeah. And it shows when you dance. Like, you see that, like, magic moving through you. It's just like, I love seeing people in their flow when dancing is there.
I love it.
Is their expression. It just makes me so happy.
Anything, like dancing, singing, like, when you see someone, like, in that flow state, in that magic, like, you get to witness what's possible. It's like it's like that deep state of meditation. Like, once you get there, you're like, whoa,
right?
Like, wow, this is possible.
And it gives you permission to do that, to feel that. You're allowed to have those experiences too. And, you know, I'm going to guess 9 times out of 10, there's a story in there somewhere about why I don't dance or why I don't sing or why I'm not musical enough. And it's just not true.
It's not something that's really, I'm going to use the word programmed into like general aspects of society. Like most people aren't like going and dancing on the weekends without alcohol,
right?
Or without drugs, or you know, in a way that's just totally with themselves, like where they are the medicine. And I actually had a really beautiful conversation with a friend the other day about vulnerability, and we were talking about how vulnerability is a space where you find permission, you find possibility. And it's one of the things that I love so much about like being in spaces where that feeling of vulnerability comes up, because through that you get to actually find within yourself like what's possible within you, like what is within you, what you have in there. And that's one of the things I love so much about dancing and singing. And I mean, the song circle that you're talking about, like those song circles in LA, like deeply changed my life, completely changed my life. I mean, I started writing music through those. Like, I found my voice. Like, thank you, Zion.
Right.
She'll be on here.
Oh, yeah.
She'll be on this
That's
podcast.
awesome.
Yeah, you know, because of her, I got to reconnect with my voice. And I love that through those experiences that you had in those 3 weeks of being with me, you were able to see like, oh, wow, like there are these parts of me that I I miss or I really like or I enjoy or that I really want to connect more with. And then knowing that you were able to then integrate those into your life in Florida. And I remember you constantly telling me how you would go to these like events every week and you were singing and there was music or there was dancing. And so it sounds like in those 3 weeks, you were able to find aspects of yourself that you realized you wanted to keep nurturing. And I think that's such a cool part about being with another person is they get to reflect, yes, but energetically stimulate particular areas of yourself that sometimes you wouldn't necessarily find on your own.
Yeah.
And so like sounds like there's a resonance that like was elicited or triggered or enhanced within you during those 3 weeks of like living with me, that you were like, oh wow, like this is a part of me. Let's keep exploring this.
Yeah.
And I love that. That's something personally for me that I set out to do for others, is allow them to like find these areas within themselves through like shining a light on all these different areas. And the way that I say it, and I know you've heard this, but you know, like I feel like my intention is to shine a light on as many possible doors and areas for other people that they can then choose which ones they want to step into, which doors they want to walk through, like which ones they're like, oh yeah, I like that, I want more of that, right?
Yes.
So I'm glad that you've been able to like continue to keep the song and the dance and the self exploration and self expression really like in your life. And I see that like even just in your energy, like your energy is so different than it was those 3 weeks that you lived with me.
Yeah, you caught me in a fight or flight state for sure for quite a while there. And like even so, like I still found it to be such a like lovely time of like getting to know you and like getting to experience parts of like a new life. And you know, like you said, it's amazing what you can see, what you can experience through relationship with people in terms of seeing things through their eyes, experiencing things through their will, and allowing the possibilities and the concepts that like you could have that if you wanted that. It's right there if you want it. And it actually reminds me a lot of the metaphor in the bell jar about the fig tree. Sylvia Plath writes about sitting underneath a fig tree and looking up at all the figs, and looking up, she sees all the different possibilities of what her life can be. And so one of them is the writer, and one of them is the mother, and one of them is the artist. And they're all these different aspects of her. And because she spends her whole life looking at them, they wither and die on the vine. And so the premise is that, you know, you can't have it all. You have to choose something. But I wrote a paper about this in college and about like the opportunities that we have, like when all of that is illuminated, to choose what we want to have. And I felt that so strongly in that experience that, you know, Leah's not special or different for having all of these things in her life. She simply chooses it. And I love that your kind of refrain in your work is that it's always your choice, because it's 100% correct. You know, there is nothing happening to us. There's no circumstance that we are like, I mean, yes, there are social structures and there are things in this world that are just kind of built into the foundations and the fundamentals, but we all have the possibility to transcend that in our own experience and in our own inner worlds. If we allow our inner world to be dictated by those kinds of structures, that's where we lose out on some of those opportunities.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think for a lot of people, they don't realize that. Like, they don't realize that they do have a choice.
Yeah.
And a lot of people feel like they're stuck in their experience and don't actually have the awareness to step outside that and disconnect from that and recognize that they are not their experience, and they can choose where they want to be and what they want to feel and what they want to have in their world.
That's right.
And so
I felt that way for a long time. That I was just kind of like, this is what I have to deal with. Like, this is my life.
I'm just gonna stuck with.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
not a fun or enjoyable place to be.
No one wants to feel stuck.
You're giving control to your experiences.
That's right. Even if you have everything you want, if you feel stuck in it, you won't feel happy. I think people need to feel that sense of agency, that sense of freedom, that sense of, I could go and do something else. And it's very easy, I think, to get into that cycle of thinking that, like, this is who I am, this is all I'll ever be.
Yeah. I think the moment that you stop the pattern of identifying as your experience is the moment that you can find freedom, because you're able to step outside of it and recognize that your experience, it just is, right? And two, you get to choose what to create. And you get to choose how you're influenced. And you get to choose how you then influence the rest of your experience in the world around you.
Yeah.
And so I think that it's a very empowering place to be, to recognize that you can choose.
It is. And, I think that everything, I think it's a very human thing that everything carries significance and meaning in our lives. But that's all part of our choice as well. We get to decide what means what. And that's the part that took me a long time to realize. It wasn't so much that, like, this is just a bad experience. It was like, no, I've assigned meaning to this. Yep. And that's what makes it so painful and so difficult to move through. And I don't know that I necessarily believe in, like, genuinely releasing trauma to the point where, like, it's not a problem anymore or not something that comes up. I think that you shift and grow around it, and you become more of who you are outside of that experience, and it shifts your relationship to it.
Yes.
And I believe that's what integration is being able to bring it with you as, like, a lesson and not as baggage.
Yeah. Well, you can't change your past experiences.
No.
You can learn from them. You can recognize the meaning that you're assigning to that past experience. You can recognize how you're allowing that past experience to influence your present experience. And then you can choose to change how you're seeing it, how you're allowing it to influence you, and create a different future, create a different path moving forwards.
Oh, yeah.
And along the way, you learn how to gain tools to support yourself with those triggers, to support yourself with nurturing your nervous system, to support yourself with nurturing that inner child and that younger version of yourself, even if it's last week, that was traumatized or was hurt or did experience pain. And you learn how to show up for yourself in that experience as a whole. And that, I think, is where the feelings of empowerment really come in, when you recognize, oh, wow, okay, I can't change what happened to me, but I can change how I'm reacting and responding, and I can change how I'm supporting myself. And therefore, moving forwards, something could happen where maybe I'm triggered, maybe it reminds me of that experience, but I know how to navigate it. I know how to handle it. I know what to do, right? And I was like, I was going to go back to always in my business and my practice, like being a child, right? And like a child takes so long to learn how to walk, because they have to learn how to balance and stabilize each one of their limbs and their muscles and make a connection to each area of their body before they can actually get up and stand up and walk. And they fail so many times. Like, as children, we fail over and over and over and over again. And we get up and we go back and we do it again and we try it again. And we do it again with knowledge.
Right.
Like the knowledge from actual, like, life experience, not that inner knowledge that I talk about a lot. But we do it through learning. And I think that is part of, like, you're talking about, like, that integration in life is like, okay, I learned from this past experience. I am not this past experience. And now I can move forwards with more confidence that I can support myself if anything like that ever comes my way again. And the truth is, nothing is ever going to happen to you exactly the same twice. Because you learn.
Right.
You learn how to cope. You learn how to support yourself. You learn how to ground yourself.
Yeah.
And it takes time. Like, you don't just, like, wake up one day and, like, figure it out. Like,
it takes a lot of practice.
so much practice.
And
your nervous system requires
and a lot of failing. It takes a lot of failure too. Like I've gone through many times in my healing journey where I felt like the child that had like no ability to regulate myself and no a grown up who could help me. And it took a long time for me to recognize like, oh, I get to be that grown up. Like I get to be the grown up who comes in and has compassion for the overwhelmed, distressed child that's having this experience right now. And I even feel like I was challenged within the last couple of months to have that kind of more grown-up response to something that was offensively triggering to me and like very disruptive to me, and like rightfully so. But it was not. I could feel the overwhelm like coming on in my body, and was just like not willing to surrender to it. And so in a moment where I was like, oh wow, I could really go for like cannabis to dissociate from this, I abstained like instinctively and was like, I'm not doing that. I'm not running from this. I reached out to a friend, and then when he called me, I almost didn't answer the phone. And then when I did, I was like, no, this is right. I need to have this conversation. I need to be able to express this right now. And allowed myself to be cared for in that space, and was taking care of myself by doing so. And I had never done that before. I had never had the opportunity to really step into caring for myself in those ways, and staying present with the discomfort and the emotions that came up instead of disassociating into another more comfortable reality. So that was a nice like opportunity, I suppose, to really exercise that in real time.
Yeah, I'm proud of you for that. You've come a long way in learning how to stand strong in your ground and regulate yourself and find your ground even when everything felt unstable around you, and listening to like what you need.
Yeah.
And how to give that to yourself. And kind of like you're saying, like you took that step back and you allowed yourself to be the observer. Like what's happening? What do I need to do? What is my instinctive response to reach for cannabis? Is that helping me and supporting me? And do I want to change my behavior? And I think that's a really, really beautiful opportunity for you to really like look back and recognize like how much work you've really put into yourself, and how much inner work you've done in the last couple of years since I met you.
Thank you. I feel that very deeply. And I think it's hard when you're in it to recognize the amount of work and growth that you've actually achieved. And I think that being out on this journey that I'm on right now, that's landed me in your room in Colorado here today.
My third house that you've been in.
Exactly. Third house in 2 years, but you've had what, like 9 different.
We don't want to talk about how many times I've moved.
We don't need to talk about that.
No.
But no, it's such a gift to be placed in moments like this where I get to reflect more deeply on where I've been since that last time that we spent time in a shared space like this together. Where I am now and where I'm going from here. Because when I left you in California last time, it was like a ... Like I was like, we'll see what happens on the next episode. Like I have no idea what's happening next week. That's how I felt.
Next episode.
Truly. My whole life is like a TV show in my head or a movie. And
Girl, I feel you.
right. I can't ignore the like narrative arc and like the theme, like thematic patterns that come up in the characters, the recurring characters, the guest stars that I get to have in my like.
They're all fantastic.
Right. It is. No, truly. It's such an incredible journey to get to like witness my life in a narrative structure, and to see the parts where it's been a non-linear narrative, and to see the parts where I've gotten to revisit certain people and certain opportunities and states of mind, and just seeing like what a different person I am to show up to those things. It's a really cool thing to view. Got to do it with you. Parts work, exactly. Yep. Got to do it with you. Before I was here, I was with my sister and siblings, as I'm sure everyone can relate to. Like, they are very good mirrors for you because you are very similar people, even if you're wildly different. Because you grew up with the same fundamentals, like you're in the same house, maybe even in the same room, probably shared a bathtub. Like these people know you on a different level. And so like I got to see my sister and, you know, we watched A Bug's Life together and like, you know,
cute.
went camping and got to see the Barbie movie and got to like indulge all these like little inner child things. And then we also had some like really complex discussions about love and like what that means to both of us and like how wildly different our views are on things like that. So it's interesting to get to spend time with people like that on your journey who maybe like are very similar to you in certain ways and very different from you in other ways. And, you know, recognizing a conversation that comes up that maybe like could not have happened at another point in your lives and is meant for this moment right now. And even though we're on different pages, we get to bring a new point of view to the other person. And it's a fascinating concept. So I'm really grateful I got to have that. And it's been a wild ride to get to see all these different people, and everyone who was part of my first journey when I went out about 2 years ago has been a part of this journey too.
Oh, cool.
Every single one. Right down to like having even not the same conversations, but like long, intentional, specific conversations on the phone with the same people in the same places, just 2 years apart. And like it all coming back like full circle to like what connects us or like what our points are, you know?
Yeah. And I think that's kind of like you were saying earlier, like relationships are such a powerful bridge to personal transformation.
Yeah.
Because they allow you to see different perspectives. They allow you to look at different parts of yourself. They allow you to witness yourself in the way you react and respond. And I think it's really cool that when you say this journey, so Colleen tonight is her last night of this really amazing and extensive summer journey that you've had around the country. And these people that are showing up or that were here are the same people that were part of your journey originally when you left me in California. Yeah. And even before you got to me, like in Arizona and all the places that you went.
That's right.
So yeah, I'm curious, like, what has been some of your big takeaways in your journeys this summer? And also, like, so what have been your big takeaways? And also, like, what are you seeing within yourself now and reflecting on in comparison to your first journey?
That's a really good question. I would say that my biggest takeaway is that before, when I first started this journey out towards the retreat in Arizona back in 2021, I was running away. I didn't even know what I was running away from. Like it wasn't like this thing I had to get away from. It was just what I was doing wasn't working. It must be out there, the thing that I need to do. It must be somewhere out there. And so, you know, went out on this whole journey of like exploring different places and different people and different dynamics and jobs and things that, you know, is this going to make me happy? Is this going to feel like the fit for me in my life? Something feels so off everywhere I go. And recognizing at a certain point that it wasn't about the location or even to some extent the people or any of that. It was really about me and how I was wherever I was at. And I learned that when I went back to Massachusetts after being out in Key West for about 6 months, decided to go home to just save a little money and regroup and decide if that was really, really where I wanted to be. And recognized that it was not where I wanted to be and that I didn't know where I wanted to be still. And it was very disheartening to feel like I had gone out and spent all of this time and energy and money, like investing in myself and like giving myself the opportunity to explore the world and figure out what I might enjoy and enjoying a lot of it, but still feeling like I had no big takeaway from it and recognizing that was like an expectation that I had that was like really heartbreaking to realize I didn't have an answer for. So like having gone out and done all of this and tried all these things and had all these new experiences and still not feeling like I knew what I wanted, sucked. That was just like, that was not how I wanted to feel. I wanted to feel a lot more clear on what I really wanted. And decided to just kind of double down on my personal work. Decided to stay in Massachusetts and just kind of save my money, do my job, focus on the couple of things that I was doing to help support myself throughout my weeks, whether that was coaching calls or, time with friends or yoga classes, or I did a lot of workshops throughout that time. I tried a couple of new healing modalities that I hadn't explored before, just looking for other options, and found that I still really wanted to travel. I felt like I had some unfinished business out there, namely getting up to the Pacific Northwest. That was something I really wanted to do, and I only really got as far north as San Francisco when I first went out. So I planned the trip to get myself back out there, gave myself a couple of months to save the money I needed to make it happen, and being out and about has been really fun. And I forgot how much I love traveling and how exciting it actually is. Like, it was terrifying the first time, but this time it's fun being like, oh, I don't know where I'm going to be, or like what I'm going to do, or like, oh, I'm just going to set up in this person's living room today and do my job, I guess. Like, so like discombobulated and wild, but like fun for me, and like interesting to see myself withstand a lack of structure. Even when it's something I've like kind of created for myself, like an intentional lack of structure, and just kind of putting myself in unknown environments with unknown variables and seeing how I withstand. And I kind of was able to recognize a little bit of like the existential kink of that, and being like, oh, I like enjoy that process. Yeah. Like, I like being like unsure and being a little bit out of control, and like not having the ability to just leave a situation. Like, I had to stick it out. Like, ooh.
I like playing with those edges.
Mm-hmm. I do.
Same.
I definitely do. So it was very cool to get to see all of that. And, I've also hit a point where like I'm super ready to go home. And I never really felt that way. Like in Key West, I got too hot. Like straight up, it got uncomfortably hot down there. And I was not comfortable anymore. I was like,
Florida's hot.
I want to go back to Cape Cod. I want to go back to the beach that is comfortable in the summer, not this like 110 degree humidity situation that was happening there. So that was like a physical comfort thing. It wasn't like a emotional like fulfillment kind of a thing to go back to Massachusetts, at least not initially. But I found, again, like narrative arcs, stories, themes, like these things all exist for a reason. And like, if you look at any given hero's journey, like they always come back home. And the answer was inside them all along. And
yes,
I don't know. I'm trying to think of what Dorothy says, if I'm ever not sure of my heart's desire or something, you don't have to look beyond your own backyard. Like, you have everything you need right where you are. And so I really felt that being out this summer, and I feel like going back now. I'm like ready to be home. I'm ready to be around all the people that I left for the last month that I've built really wonderful connections with, and have wonderful routines and like reciprocations with, and like have built such beautiful communities around. I'm so excited to have that back, and I'm excited to really decide where I want to be now, because I feel so much more like I still don't have a clear answer. I'm still not like, no, I want to live like in this place. I want this to be the thing. Like, I'm still open to different opportunities, but I feel more grounded in myself and knowing that like I could be anywhere. I know what things are important to me. I know what feels good. I really have had some skewed perceptions of those things in the last couple of years, and some like disillusioning moments of thinking that I knew what I wanted, and then illusion shattered. Not what I want, not what I need. Totally upsetting. Having moments of thinking I understand my needs, and then recognizing that I have so many other needs that are being completely unmet that are now getting louder because those other needs are getting met, and it's feeling like I'm not doing the right thing, or I'm not focusing on the right thing. And being able to shift that mindset of like, I'm not doing enough, or like I haven't healed enough to get to X, Y, or Z point, or I need to do more work before I'm worthy of whatever. A lot of those stories were very present in me over this last year, and I had to face a lot of those shadows, and recognize that that was a reality that I was creating, that was not, it was only real because I was making it real.
And you're listening.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So, yeah, it's been a wild ride, for sure. It's been a wild journey. But it feels really good, and I don't regret any of the places I've been, or the people I've stayed with, or the experiences that we've had, because it's shown me more and more who I am and how I show up, and I'm able to see my own patterns reflected back to me in my relationships, and able to recognize the value of time spent with myself. Whether that's time I get to spend with me or time others get to spend with me, that time has so much value. Yeah. And really getting to be so intentional about how I spend that time. And if it's by myself or with myself, it's not a lonely time necessarily anymore. I mean, it still can be, because, we all love that little so lonely feeling every now and then, but that's not my like consistent reality. It's become much more apparent to me how wonderful it is to just be able to be with myself.
And that's been a big shift for you, and more so like the last few months, like the last 3 months or so.
Yeah. I would really credit that to the mind shift work from the MindBody initiative, honestly.
Yeah.
I would. I feel like that is the most apparent shift in my mindset that's been consistent for me. Because, like we were talking a little bit earlier about the retreat life and how that can be like this magical container. But if you don't take those things and integrate them into your life, then it was just a vacation. And I feel that way about like psychedelics and stuff too. Like if you don't take the lessons and integrate them into your day to day or make those shifts, then you just had a fun time. Like you're not really making those big strides. Maybe on some kind of unconscious level, things are still starting to shift in little ways, but it's all about how you really like show up to it and practice it. And I was met with challenges during the MindBody initiative to be showing up for people in my life who were not showing up for themselves, and had to very kindly take steps back in places where I just would have been, no questions asked. And that was really surprisingly hard for me. It doesn't sound like it would be that hard, but like I was very upset and frustrated with like this like one specific person in my life who I just like, I needed them to like I needed them to care more about themselves than I did.
Yeah. And
it was painful for me to watch it. And it was nearly impossible for me to really be able to take care of myself because I was taking care of them. And, when I stepped back, I recognized not only they're fine, like they do have a lot of work to do, but like this is their journey. Like this is where they're at. I can't ask them to be somewhere different. That's not fair. And it's not fair for me to have an expectation of someone to show up the way that I show up. But it is important for me to uphold the expectation that I have of myself to show up for myself first, if I intend to do that for anyone else. And it was actually the week that we did story work, and I had a really hard week with that. I was really dealing with like repressed memory that I was not I didn't think that was what was going to happen. I didn't think that was what was going to happen. Okay. Like
you never think what's going to come up with story work.
I really didn't. I really I've done story work. I was like, I'm a pro at this. I've done so much story work. Like I know where this is going. I know what the translation's going to look like. Like blah, blah, blah. I'm an expert. No, I'm the fucking not. So I, had to face a story that I didn't know I had in me and wasn't really planning on processing, and therefore was not really prepared for. And I called this friend for some support and was met on the other end of the phone with her needing support at the same time. And I thought maybe we could support each other. And when I connected with her, I recognized that was not the case. And I had the support call that night. And so my option, which I told her, I was like, I'll probably just do the call like at your house. And I told her I needed to leave. And I needed to go and do this call and take care of myself emotionally. And we did the EFT tapping session that night. And I told her I'd call her when I was done. And when I was done, I did not call her. I texted her and told her, I can't come back tonight. Give me a call next couple of days. Let me know how you're doing. But I'm just going to go home and continue to take care of myself. And I don't think I saw her for maybe a month after that. I really stood my ground and taking the space and told her, I'm here if you need me, but I really need to kind of take care of myself. And it was big for me to really step into that and to I don't know. I mean, it was a call that was recorded. I could have gone back and done it the next day. I could have stayed with her and done that emotional support friend role, but and years ago I would have, but in that moment I really couldn't. And I felt so clear about that in my body. And another thing is that I had rolled like some joints for us to have, and decided I was not going to engage with that either at that point in time. And so that was also like a profound moment of like, this is uncomfortable. This is usually how she and I connect. This is not going to support either of us right now. So I'm going to go. And I didn't engage with cannabis that night at all, and was able to move through my emotions that came up surrounding that story in a way that were actually very supportive. And where it really hasn't plagued me in the same ways that some other stories still do. And so I don't know what exactly to like credit that to, but I really feel like it has to do with the fact that I chose to show up for myself in a much more full and present way.
How did it feel to set those boundaries for yourself?
At first it felt foreign and selfish. And once I did it, it felt like tough love. And then once I did the tapping session, it felt like real love.
You gained love, it sounds like, within yourself through setting those boundaries.
And it was a way of loving her as well, because showing up in codependency is not supportive, even when it feels supportive.
For either party involved.
That's right.
Thank you for sharing all that.
Thank you.
Yeah, and so to give you guys a little bit of background, and we're now kind of shifting into this naturally, but so Colleen is a friend. She is a soul sister, a witch sister, all the things. And Colleen reached out to me 5 months-ish back now when I was promoting and talking about the MindBody Initiative, which is my 16-week signature group program that dives deep into all things physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual well-being. And you came to me and said, hey, like, I know you're my friend, but like, I'm really interested in this program. I'm really interested in, potentially having you be my coach. And we dove into some really deep conversation that night. And you opted in to joining the program. And so we went through this 16 weeks together, and you shifted a lot in those 16 weeks. Like a lot, like you're talking about now, like a lot came up for you. Like you started setting boundaries in your personal life, in your work life. And I would love to, I'll say for myself, it was really powerful when you came to me and wanted to opt into, as my friend, like opt into my coaching world. And that meant a lot to me. And that was just a really powerful moment for me. And I'm curious, like for you, like what was it that made you be like, I want my friend to like coach me? Like what made you feel comfortable like stepping into that world with me?
Yeah. Well, it's interesting because my coaches have always been my friends. My first coach was my friend Rob, who did that Ice and Iron group.
Yep. I know Rob.
And yep, you know Rob. So he was my first coach. One of my good friends from high school. And when he started doing, Czech Institute things, he needed guinea pig clients and just wanted to run through his material. And I was like, yeah, sure, like whatever. And then started going to the Ice and Iron groups, met Rachel, and got involved with her containers, and became friendly with her as well, and built a wonderful friendship, and met other coaches through that I was able to connect with too, and do different story work sessions and let them practice their craft, let me explore myself. And it was always with friends. And I felt that when I met you, that I had so much to learn from you. And I loved the way that you carried yourself and the way that you spoke, and could feel could just feel that you had something to back up what you were saying. And the only way I can really qualify that is that like, I think I was raised with like a medical model and like scientific, procedure and things like that, as like, this is kind of like where facts come from, this is how we prove things. And Like loving to exist in theoretical spaces, but wanting some concrete evidence to back up why I'm doing what I'm doing. And one of the reasons I was so drawn to, story work and the coaching in this world in general is because it's based in psychology.
Yes.
It's really based in how the mind works and how specifically a traumatized mind can work. If you are someone like yourself who does take a trauma-informed approach to this kind of work. And it's not for the faint of heart, and it's not therapy. It's a very different kind of modality and way that you look at yourself. And I like doing that with people who know me on a personal level, because I think it's important to feel seen and heard and valued. And I feel the most seen and heard and valued by my friends. Those are the people in my life who I know get me. And that's why they're in that position. That's why I've kept them in that circle, because I feel seen and heard and valued by them. And in ways that maybe I don't by my family or by my colleagues or by any other acquaintance in my life, or someone who maybe I like a lot and we get along, but it's just not the same.
Yeah.
And so I felt that resonance with you immediately. And I remember when we were, I don't remember if it was Huntington or Culver. I think it was when we were in Culver. But we were at like a laundromat or something, and we sat in your car and we had a deep conversation where I got very emotional, and you helped me kind of re-regulate myself. And I could feel in that moment that I wanted to learn whatever you had already clearly built into the way that you process those kinds of emotions. I really wanted to learn how to do that for myself. And at the time I just didn't feel ready. And I would even say, to some extent, did not believe that that was something I could do. Didn't know why it wasn't something I could do, but could see someone else doing it and couldn't see it in my own reality. And so it took me a year plus of external experiences to recognize, that is something I have access to. And not only is it something I have access to, I have a deep personal friendship with someone who can give me the key. And so, when I reached out, I was in a place where I was looking for more support, but also looking for more accountability and looking for something that was kind of structured like a course, I wanted, I don't know, I didn't always love school, but I was always really good at school. Okay. The structure of having a syllabus, knowing what was in front of me, understanding the expectation, knowing the schedule. I can do all of that really well. And so even if I don't care for the material, I can show up to it. And I knew that, I was not necessarily going to resonate with 110% of everything that happened in this course, but I knew that over the course of 16 weeks and 16 highly intentional and structured modules that had corresponding coaches and tools and functional applications and real research to back up where all this information was coming from, I knew that that was what was going to resonate in my brain. And the first, I want to say maybe 4, maybe even 5 weeks was all mindset.
Yeah.
Deep
mindset.
Deep mindset. And I believe, I don't remember the exact question, but on the questionnaire, I think the last question was about the biggest takeaway. And my biggest takeaway was the values, voids, and shadows exercise. I don't think I had ever really gotten clear about my personal core values. And writing about the voids was initially a little devastating and then very freeing. It made a lot of things become very apparent to me in a more gentle way than it felt initially. Because first you're writing about all the voids in your life, right? The things that you're missing, that you're suffering over. But it showed me a lot of the ways in which that is also perception. In places where I maybe feel lack or void is just a place where I'm maybe looking in the wrong place for those things. Because again, I have all of these things within me. I have all of these experiences and tools and abilities to understand different points of view and to have compassion for myself. It was just a matter of actually believing it and enacting it and having some structured support to move through the physical learning of that. Because there's a difference between, or my AP bio teacher always said, there's a difference between knowing something and owning something. Oh. So if you know it, yeah, you knew it, but if you own something, you don't even have to think about it.
Yeah.
You just know it.
And fully embodying it.
And it's a deep inner knowing. It's like knowing on a cellular level. And like, that's how I like to operate, is like on that knowing basis, and on that like integral, intuitive level of like, no, I know this. And I didn't feel like I knew much when I reached out. I was like, I thought I did, but again, like kind of felt disillusioned by like a couple of months being away from this like little vacation world I had created for myself, and getting back to reality and dealing with some difficult things, and questioning who I was and where my values lied and what kinds of things I wanted to prioritize in my life. And do I even have goals? And like, what are they? And am I working towards anything? And I just hadn't really looked at any of those things. And I was ready to shine a light on them. And I knew I didn't want to do it alone. I probably could, but I find that my most profound healing comes through relational dynamic and like in group settings. I really love group work. Small containers, but there's something very powerful about very unique individuals who have had completely different experiences coming together for a shared purpose and being able to support each other. And by supporting each other, we then support ourselves. It's kind of miraculous. And I was first exposed to it in therapy, actually. I was seeing my therapist, and she recommended a group therapy session that she was putting together. And it was going to be a small group of women. She worked with all of us individually. We all had experiences that were different, but our emotional processing was very similar. And she wanted us to come together and share. And I was very resistant. I had no desire to like be sharing my experience with strangers, and learned through the experience that that's the way that you heal, is by sharing your experience with others. And by someone sharing their experience and you showing up with compassion for them, you recognize that their sentence could have come out of your mouth, that like you have said that about yourself a million times. And if you can give them that level of compassion, why couldn't you give that to yourself?
Ooh, that's juicy.
Like, that's huge in group healing.
Yeah.
And like I probably did about 16 weeks of my group session when I was in therapy. And it was profound. Like, it really shifted my world. And I wasn't like friends with these people. Like, we didn't hang out or talk at any point outside of this group. But like, we came together once a week, and we're on the same page, and we're there for the same reason. And like, we're on very different places in our lives and our healing and our experiences. But it gave me so much perspective, and it gave me so much solace to know that like, yeah, I'm not alone, but also I can support myself with this because these people are doing that too. Like, we're all in this together. Like, we all have to do our own journey and like do what we need to do for us. But like, we're all here to do this together. And I felt that way with our group as well. Everyone was there for very specific and different reasons. Everyone was at very different places in their lives and came from different backgrounds and different experiences in terms of what kind of healing they were into and what was working for them and what wasn't, and what they were looking for. And I think it was the perfect group of people. I feel like I always heard what I needed to hear and always shared what I needed to share. And would get a message from someone about something that really resonated and was like, oh wow, like I almost didn't say that. And like, it's just nice to have that all reflected back to you in a group setting. And I think one-on-one containers are powerful and like super important too, because you have to get like really comfortable with yourself and looking at yourself directly. Yep. And sometimes a group setting can be nice for that too, because it's a little bit less intimate. There's a little bit less spotlight on you. And so, even if something is like, your deepest, darkest wound, we're just going to talk about it on this level today, and that's okay. And
so many benefits in both.
Yeah, there really are. But I really wanted the group. I was really intent on like continuing to build that community aspect of my healing journey, because if anything has been the common thread in what's worked for me and what hasn't, community is like the key for me.
Community is incredibly, incredibly supportive in your healing journey. And that's one of my big things is right, going deep within yourself so that you can then show up in the environment around you direct environment around you in your community. And therefore, once you can show up larger in your community and more integrated into your community, then you can step forwards if you feel called to make bigger impacts in the world. But I love what you're saying, because being in community and being a reflection for others and also being reflected back to, right, through others, helps you in so many ways see yourself in different lights. And I think that's where I personally felt really called to, for this experience, to be a group program, because like you're saying, like you learn so much through that. And I'm glad that you were able to take a lot of that away from the MindBody initiative. And I'm curious, like, what was that experience like for you over the 16 weeks? And who have you become through the MindBody initiative as a catalyst?
I love that question. Let's see. Would you be able to restate the question for me?
Yeah. So let's shift this a little bit and kind of break it up a little. What do you feel like you have gained through the 16-week experience?
Through the 16 weeks, I feel like I gained a lot of appreciation for where I'm at. I think when I started the program and when I first reached out for it, I was very dissatisfied with where I was at. And by simply showing up and going through the modules and the exercises and doing all of the things that I was able to show up for during the 16 weeks, I was able to have an appreciation for exactly who I am right now, as someone who shows up, as someone who honors their commitments, as someone who is committed to their healing journey, and as someone who also is a human and, like, you know, needs a break sometimes and wants to go to trivia on Thursday night with my friends and skip a call every now and then. Like, there were moments that came up like that too, and I was like, am I honoring myself by doing that if I decide to do something different than this thing I committed to? And recognizing that, like, yeah, that's actually okay. Like, it's your life. You don't have to do anything. Like, nothing is set in stone. Like, you committed to this and you get to decide how you want to show up for it, even if that's next week on Tuesday night after the other call and you watch the one from last week. You know, like, you get to decide how you want to show up for this, and if it doesn't feel good, choose differently next time. And I gave myself the ability to really, like, choose where I wanted to be and what I wanted to do. And I went from a pretty chronic robotic routine of, you know, finish my day at work, go hang out with a friend, maybe smoke some weed, maybe watch TV, like, just not anything productive. And took 2 nights of my week out of that and restructured them. And it changed so much of my relationship with myself, my relationship with the people I was around, the way I was prioritizing the time that I was allocating towards social aspects of my life, and recognizing what was fulfilling in that and what wasn't, and what was actually draining me in certain ways. But I honored myself by giving myself the opportunity to have 2 to 4 hours every week that was just dedicated to my journey, where I was at, and showing up for myself and for the other people who had committed to that journey too. And so that was a really big moment in appreciating myself for exactly who I am, and recognizing that, like, yeah, these are all things that, like, I could do better, I could change, I can make differently in my life and could feel a lot better. You know, pick any one of the 16 weeks and, like, I could do more with it. But I don't have to be, like, a valid person. I don't have to give up my whole lifestyle and do things a very specific way in order to, like, be happy or to feel deserving or to be comfortable in my body or in myself. And that was a big mindset shift that I didn't really know I needed, which makes it even better, right? When you shift your mindset so much, you're like, oh wow, I didn't even know I was thinking that way. I didn't know I was there. So that's always fun. But yeah, I would say that was my biggest takeaway, was really appreciating the amount of time and energy that I've invested in myself already and how that has allowed me to step into an opportunity like working with you in this program and connecting with the people who signed up to be on this journey as well. And just showing up exactly as I am and not trying to be something different or wishing that I was further along in my journey. I had that reflected back to me from one of the members in our group who was just like, everyone seems like they're so much farther along on this journey than I am. And I was like, I mean, I feel that way too. Like, we're not, like, it's not a race and it's not a linear experience, and it's not, you don't get badges and checkpoints for every retreat that you do and every fucking coaching program you complete. Like, you don't get anything like that. It's just about like how you define that worth and like that person within yourself. And I really think like appreciation for myself and like a lot of compassion for where I am at and like how far I've come and how far I can still move forward with if I want to, and recognizing that is a choice too. I could stay this way forever and I'd probably, be fine. But that's not where my mindset is right now.
I love what you said around you can always do more. Mm-hmm. You can always go deeper. And being accepting of where you're at right now, right? Like the work that you've done, where you are right in this moment. And recognizing that like you can go deeper if you want to. Mm-hmm. But being okay here.
Yeah.
I think that's big.
Yeah. Being okay in the present, that's a new concept for me. That's pretty new.
Surrendering to the present moment, like all things right here, right now.
Genuine presence. I don't know that I ever experienced like ongoing genuine presence in my life. It's something that I actively create on a daily basis. My default programming will be to overthink things that I have no control over, underthink things that could probably take a little more attention because I'm overwhelmed by the things I can't control, or getting into depression states from the overwhelm of not being able to control these variables and these things outside of my world. So it's always an active practice to really show up with presence and gratitude. And I was able to recognize that a lot on this trip. I had a lot of different variables come up that changed my travel plans, changed my trajectory, changed my timing, my days off, things that like I had pretty much set in stone. And
they were different.
And it was just different. And it was different. It was not what I planned.
Things normally don't happen according to plan.
So rarely.
Imagine that.
It's interesting. Like I grew up in a household where it was kind of believed like if you planned enough, things would go as planned. And then when they didn't, things would feel really stressful. And everything was ruined or something like that. Like that was always kind of the energy that was around it. And even this past weekend, I went camping with my sister and, we went out for a beautiful day at Bryce Canyon and we came back to a campsite that was covered in hail and a tent that was flooded and 40-degree weather. And there was no salvaging that situation. Like there just simply wasn't. And so my sister said, "What do you want to do?" And I said, what are my options? Because, we're in her car. It's her trip. I'm just kind of along for the ride. And she said, well, we can look at a hotel here. We can look at this. We can go back to Vegas. I was like, let's look for a hotel. Let's find a place. And we ended up finding a place that was a lot closer to the park that we were going to the next day. So we got a longer day there. We had to drop a little bit more money on a hotel, but we both got to sleep in a very comfortable bed. I got to swim in a pool and move my body in the morning before we left. It was all things that I really needed at that point in time. And so I was really grateful that, my sister had her shit together and was able to find a spot with service at this remote campground and book a hotel. And, we just kind of went with the flow. And it felt really good. And there was a time where that, would have rocked me, or we would have just gone home because it was all a lot and everything was ruined now. And I could definitely feel my sister tending a little bit more negatively than I was. And I could feel myself being that look at the bright side kind of energy that everyone hates. But I was like, no, this is
But
important.
also needed.
But it's needed. It is. It's important. And even when we got to the hotel, I was saying, like, I said something like that to the check-in clerk, and she was like, oh, way to look at the bright side or something like that. And I was like, you know what? Yeah, I have a good mindset on this.
You're
I really
welcome.
do. You're welcome. Yeah, exactly. So it's good to be able to practice those things in real time and recognize, a couple of years ago, I would have had a very different response to that.
Yeah.
And it wasn't even like a thought. It wasn't like I was like actively fighting this like reaction in my body. It was just like, oh, well, then we'll just do this.
Yeah.
Like it was so different to be able to shift into that.
Yeah, and I've definitely seen you really harness that and implement a lot of that on a deeper level through the 16 weeks of the program. Like from the beginning to the end, just being able to like surrender and release and just like full acceptance. Okay, this is where we're at. This is what it is. This may not be what I planned or wanted it to be. What's my next step forwards? So I'm glad to hear that even in this trip over the last couple of weeks, you've really been able to see yourself in the work you've done around that.
Yeah, big time. I would say one of my biggest intentions for this trip was to surrender. I put myself intentionally into a situation where I had, 2 bags, 12 outfits, surrounding myself with people who I knew, but who I had never spent significant amounts of time with before, not having a car, not having an escape route. I have a credit card. I guess I could always book a flight home and bail at any moment, but that was not what I was there to do. I was there to, again, kind of put myself in a situation that was maybe a little bit uncomfortable and where the variables were not mine to control and where I just had, this is what I got. This is what I'm doing. We'll see how it kind of goes. And, I don't know. I feel like I responded really well, and I feel like I responded. I don't feel like I reacted to anything, and that's also different for me.
I'm very proud of you.
Thank you.
So, would you recommend the MindBody initiative, and why? And if so, who would you recommend it to?
I would recommend the MindBody initiative in general. And I'll reiterate what I said before, which is that if you're someone who, like me, has a learning style that is very much supported by evidence-based research, by practical application, and by demonstrated execution of skills, then this is a great course for you to take. You will get the resources that feel supportive. You will see the tools used in real time. You will learn from people who have practiced it on a mastery level. And you'll have the ability to connect with these people as humans and find out where and how you can fit those things into your life. So I think it could be great for anyone who aligns with that kind of learning style or who looks for that kind of evidence-based practice. I think that can be hard to find sometimes in the coaching world. And I don't think that every evidence-based practice is right. And I don't think that you need to necessarily have evidence for something to be supportive or helpful. If something helps and you don't know why, does it even matter? Like, if it helped, it helped. Yeah. So it's totally up to you, you being anyone who might be considering MindBody or any kind of coaching initiative. But for me, it was really about the evidence that I was able to experience, not only with like the resources and everything, but like the evidence of seeing you as a person practicing these things in your life and getting to see you do those things when I lived with you for a couple of weeks. And then from afar over Instagram, how you cultivated yourself and your business over the course of that year, and reconnecting with you at various points in Miami and in Cape Cod and now back here in Colorado. And it holds up, like, it's not a farce. It's not like a magic quick fix. It's not a like, follow these 10 steps and you can have everything you want. Like, it's none of that shit. And like, that's what I'm wary of when it comes to this kind of work, is like those magic quick fixes and those like immediate, instant gratification kinds of things, because those tools don't tend to sustain me. They may work for some, but for me, it's not sustainable. It's kind of a one-off or like a one-hit wonder kind of a feeling. And it's been so great for me to get to have things that are continuously supportive. And even things that like I'd experienced before, but just got to experience in a new way, like the EFT, having gotten to do that experience and having profound experiences with it, but then doing it specifically with this story work in this coaching container and how we worked through those questions and processed and did the writing surrounding it. It all just worked for me. And like I default to tapping more now than I have even in the past year since I learned about it. And like unconsciously, like I'll just be sitting there and start tapping like on the body, like it, but it feels good. And I know it'll support me. And it's almost like an unconscious thing now to like want to tap into that. And so like, that's what I really look for is things that will nestle themselves in my unconscious and in my subconscious, and my body will just know and trust that like, this is helpful. And yeah, if there's something to back it up, then that just is like icing for me. That just makes me feel really good about it on the conscious level too. And I need all three to be in alignment. So for anyone who's seeking that kind of support, I would say, yeah, go for it. It's amazing to get to work with you and with Valerie together. I think that you guys have such a unique like dynamic, and I love the balance that you bring where you have like this like pragmatism and this humor to you, and Valerie has this like compassion and it's like matter of fact, almost like this like matter of factness about the way that she speaks, and it's not harsh, but it's deliberate.
She's very direct.
Yes, and I love it. Yeah. I fucking love it. Like I think it's awesome the way that you guys both harness that kind of energy in such unique ways, and I valued so much the conversations that the three of us got to have. There were definitely a couple calls where it was like just the three of us, and I loved that. I was like, I felt so spoiled. But it was so nice to, it's just so nice to feel informed and supported and cared for in your journey. And like, you can't do the work for anyone, and you don't assume that you can or take that on as your responsibility. In fact, like even in the first session where you introduced this course, that was like a main premise of it was like, this is your commitment to yourself. Like you're showing up to do this for you. Don't do it for me. Don't do it for Valerie. Like you're doing this for you. Yeah. And I just remember taking that very seriously. And so if you're willing to show up for yourself, then yeah, this is also the course for you. Because there's a lot of stuff out there that, could be helpful if you're really able to show up to it and integrate it. But like, that's only you know that, only you can have that understanding and awareness of yourself and know, what's going to work for you and what's not, I used to think I was going to go back to school for like nursing or become a midwife or something and like go into the clinical medical setting. And even though I could have done that, my body wouldn't let me. Like I was like, nope, like there's something totally blocking me from doing this. I can't do prerequisites for chemistry right now. This is not what is helping me right now. It's not going to support me. And you have to feel passionately about the content that you're consuming. And for me, it was always about the mind-body connection, because that's been my biggest challenge is really feeling confident that my mind and my body are connected and that my mind and my body are on the same page. I mean, I can't tell you how many times my mind has made a choice and my body has fought it the whole time. And I can't tell if that's me overriding my inner wisdom or if that's a trauma response. Like it's almost impossible for me to discern sometimes.
Do you feel like the MindBody Initiative has supported you in enhancing and optimizing that mind-body connection?
I do. I really do. And I think that even some of the like real lived examples of things that I had to work through while I was doing this program, like not even necessarily the story work or the specific sessions or things, but like the things that came up in my life around that and how I responded. Yeah, that was very much like mind-body connected. And I think it's still a work in progress, but I feel much more attuned to my body's needs and to the part of my mind that is my authentic self versus the part of my mind that is healing and is traumatized and is programmed and has these ideas about how things work. So I'm starting to really be able to discern those things. It still feels like a learning curve for me. Like there still feels like there are times where I don't we're not all on the same page, even when we think we are. But we get there eventually. And like, that's a big part of the parts work too, is like honoring like, okay, like there's a part of me that's not aligned with this. What is that part? And like giving that part some space and
working with it.
Exactly.
I'm really glad that you've had such a great experience moving through this program, and it's really been an honor supporting you as not just a friend, but also a client going through these 16 weeks and holding that very intentional space for you. And it's very special for me being able to have a close friend look at me and say, hey, like I'm watching you, you walk the walk, you talk the talk, and I want that. And I want more of that support. And also like knowing that like that doesn't interfere with our friendship in any way, shape, or form. If anything, it just like deepens it.
That's how I feel too.
And I think that's such a cool part of being able to do this work with you. And it's been really beautiful watching you grow and watching you transform over the last 16 weeks. And I'm really proud of the work that you've done internally. And it's been really beautiful witnessing the external shifts and changes that you've been able to experience and implement because of that internal work that you've done.
Thank you. Thank you. It's so beautiful to have that like all reflected back to me. It feels really great, and I'm really glad that I reached out to you when I did, and I'm really glad that it aligned for me to really take those 4 months to focus on myself as I was like heading towards this journey that I had planned for my summer, and allow this month-long journey to play out and be able to tap into so many of the different exercises and so many of the different concepts and like really the mindset shifts. Like I swear that's just like been the biggest thing. And like once you change your mind, like everything changes around it.
Everything.
It's kind of amazing. And I just hope I don't lose that. Like I have seen myself go through so many different emotional peaks and valleys, and so I like really want to I've been really working to I guess to like build these imprints of experiences for myself as evidence, like kind of building my own evidence-based practice of like, hey, when you do these things, you feel like this. When you don't do these things, you feel like this. Yeah. And allowing those things to come up as teachers and not as like a way to punish myself for not making a different choice, or as a way to, again, like wish I was further along on my journey or anything, but just acknowledging and understanding that like this feels good, this doesn't feel good. Like we like to do things that feel good, remember?
Yeah.
Remember?
We like those good things. I hear that, and you're doing it. And I think one of the most powerful things with mindset shifts is that once you're aware of the thing, you can't unsee it. And so once you allow yourself to step into that shift, then you're aware when you're deliberately ignoring, continuing to be in that pattern.
Yeah.
So I foresee you continuing to really embody that and practice that and continue to be aware of when you're not, and allow yourself to take a step back in line and back into alignment when you need. And I've watched you do that. So I'm excited to keep watching you find that alignment and grow and continue to do your inner work. And it's been an honor supporting you along the last 16 weeks in the MindBody Initiative. And just really grateful for your presence and your friendship. I'm really grateful for you being here and sharing all of it with me today.
I know. Look at this. We're on a podcast.
We're here.
We're on your podcast, Leah.
I know.
I love it.
So thank you, Cole. I really appreciate you.
It's a mutual honor, truly. It's really, really a special part of my life to get to share this with you. I had no idea when I met you what kind of transformation my life would take on as a result of that, as a result of fostering that connection. And I'm really glad that even at that time where my intuition felt like so out of whack and I had no idea where I was going or what I was doing, that you were there, and that my intuition guided me to indulge in that time, because it really did set me up for an incredible journey. And I wouldn't do it any other way.
I'm deeply honored to be that catalyst for you. So thank you.
Thank you.
I love you.
I love you too.
Thanks for being here, Call.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm so honored, and I can't wait to hear this whole podcast as it comes out. I'm so excited to hear your voice and let this...
And hear yours.
Yes, and hear mine. Fuck yeah.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. Thank you so much for tuning in with me today and for continuing to opt in to your inner work. If you found value in this conversation, please share it on social media or with someone you know that values both healing and growth. And I'd also like to invite you to join the Holistic Healing Tribe. This is my private community full of self-healers who are on a mission to optimize their physical, mental, and emotional well-being. Click the link in the show notes to join the tribe. And when you join, I'll send you my favorite things that have made the biggest impact on my health, my healing, and my growth. And finally, if you're anything like me and deeply care about seeing a more mindful approach to human evolution, please leave a review to help us reach more listeners and make a bigger impact on the world around you.